The unbelievable, true-inspired story of a teenage female Mossad agent who disguised herself as a boy barber in 1980s Beirut to get close enough to mark Hezbollah's top bomb maker for elimination. A gripping tale of courage, deception, and sacrifice. June 12, 1986. In the bustling heart of Beirut's Hamra district, 15-year-old Nadia Khalil stood before a fogged mirror in the cramped back room of a dingy barber shop, her hands steady as she adjusted the crisp white tunic over her bound chest. The disguise was flawless, a boyish haircut cropped close by her own scissors, faint charcoal smudges mimicking stubble on her smooth jaw, her slight frame hidden beneath loose trousers and an apron stained with the day's clippings. She practiced her smile in the reflection, wide and eager, the kind an apprentice named Nabil might flash to a favored customer. Outside, the evening call to prayer wove through the honks of taxis and the chatter of street vendors. But Nadia's mind was on the man who would soon walk through the door. Massoud Danawi, the shadowy Hezbollah commander whose bombs had shattered lives from Tel Aviv to Buenos Aires. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with the burning resolve of a girl who had lost everything to men like him. Nadia wasn't born to this life. She had come into the world in a quiet Moroccan Jewish village in 1971, her family fleeing to Israel amid rising tensions after the Yom Kippur War of 1973. Her father, a tailor in Ashdod, had been killed in a Katyusha rocket attack from Lebanon in 1982, his body pulled from the rubble, as Nadia, then 11, clutched her mother's skirt and vowed silent revenge. Mossad scouts spotted her potential early. Her flawless Arabic from childhood, her olive skin that blended seamlessly in Arab crowds, her quick wit sharpened by grief. By 13, she was in training at a covert facility in the Negev, learning to shadow targets in Jerusalem's Old City, to pick locks under duress, to endure interrogations that left bruises, but never broke her spirit. "You're young," her handler, a stern woman named Tamar, had told her during those grueling sessions. "That's your weapon. No one suspects a child." Now, at 15, Nadia was deep in enemy territory, her cover as a barber's apprentice meticulously built over months of insertions via fishing boats from Cyprus. Massoud Danawi was no ordinary mark. Born in southern Lebanon in 1948, he had risen through the ranks of Amal militia before aligning with Hezbollah in 1982, following Israel's invasion of Lebanon, Operation Peace for Galilee, that aimed to crush PLO strongholds but ignited a fiercer resistance. Danawi orchestrated the 1983 Beirut barracks bombings that killed 241 American Marines and 58 French paratroopers, his network smuggling Iranian explosives through Damascus. By 1986, with the Iran-Iraq war raging and Tehran funneling arms to proxies, Danawi had become Hezbollah's master logistician, coordinating shipments of Katyushas and RPGs that rained on northern Israel. Mossad intercepts from Unit 8200, dated May 1986, confirmed his role in planning a major assault on the Israeli embassy in Paris, potentially killing dozens. The global stakes were immense. A successful attack could embolden Iran, fracture fragile ceasefires in Lebanon, and drag the superpowers deeper into the quagmire. Prime Minister Shimon Peres, in a classified Knesset briefing on June 1, 1986, had declared Danawi a red line, to be neutralized at all costs, but without fingerprints that could ignite full-scale war. In Tel Aviv's Mossad headquarters, Director Nahum Admoni reviewed the operation dossier under the hum of fluorescent lights, his face etched with the toll of endless vigilance. Admoni, who had overseen daring raids like the 1981 bombing of Iraq's Osirak reactor, knew the risks of deploying a minor. But Nadia's profile was unmatched: orphaned drive, linguistic mastery, and a face that screamed innocence. "She's our only way in," Tamar argued in the briefing room. Danawi was paranoid, rarely venturing beyond fortified safe houses, but he had one weakness: a weekly shave at Abu Hassan's barber shop in Hamra, a ritual rooted in his village upbringing. Mossad had bought out the owner months earlier, installing Nadia as the new apprentice. Her mission: get close during the shave, slip a micro-tracker into his clothing, or, if opportunity struck, administer a slow-acting poison disguised as aftershave. Failure meant exposure, torture in Hezbollah's cells, or worse. Success could dismantle Danawi's network, saving countless lives. Nadia felt the weight as she swept clippings from the tiled floor, the shop's air thick with the scent of bay rum and tobacco. Abu Hassan, her unwitting cover boss, grumbled about the slow day, unaware his young helper was wired with a concealed microphone relaying every word to a Mossad van parked 2 blocks away. Her thoughts drifted to her mother back in Ashdod, who believed Nadia was at a boarding school in Haifa. The lie stung, but so did the memory of her father's funeral. Closed casket, the rabbi's words lost in her sobs. For Abba, she whispered to herself, pocketing the tiny vial of toxin supplied via dead drop the night before. As dusk fell on June 12th, the shop bell tinkled. Danawi entered, flanked by 2 bodyguards who scanned the room with hard eyes. He was shorter than Nadia expected, his beard streaked gray, his smile disarming as he greeted Abu Hassan like an old friend. "The usual, my brother," he said, settling into the leather chair. Nadia's pulse thundered as she approached with a steaming towel, her boyish disguise holding under the dim lights. "Let the boy handle the lather," Abu Hassan said casually, stepping back for a smoke. Danawi nodded, leaning back as Nadia draped the towel over his face, her hands inches from the man who had orchestrated her world's destruction. In the van, Tamar listened intently, fingers hovering over the abort signal. The tension coiled. One slip, and the girl was lost. But Nadia moved with grace born of training and fury, her mind racing through contingencies. The trap was set, the shave about to begin. June 12, 1986. The barbershop's single ceiling fan turned lazily, pushing warm air around the small room as Nadia leaned over Massoud Danawi's reclined chair. The steaming towel muffled his breathing, softening the hard lines of a face that had ordered death across continents. She removed it slowly, letting the heat rise from his skin, and met his eyes in the mirror. Dark, appraising, but relaxed in the familiar ritual. "Good hands, boy," he murmured in Lebanese Arabic, voice thick with steam. "Steady, you from the south?" Nadia kept her voice light, cracking it just enough to sell adolescence. "Baalbek originally, Sayyid. Family moved here after the Troubles." A half-truth. Baalbek was Hezbollah heartland. Mentioning it built instant trust. She worked the lather into his beard with deliberate care, fingers brushing his throat as she spread the foam. The vial of modified fentanyl derivative, odorless, fast-absorbing through skin, was tucked inside her apron pocket, disguised as a small bottle of bay rum aftershave. One splash at the end of the shave, and Danawi would feel nothing until cardiac arrest claimed him quietly in his car hours later. Clean, deniable, but the bodyguards complicated everything. They had taken positions differently tonight, one by the door, the other leaning against the wall near the window, eyes never leaving their principal. Abu Hassan, sensing the tension, busied himself in the back room grinding coffee, leaving Nadia alone under their scrutiny. Any sudden move for the vial, and they would react. The tracker plan, sewing a micro beacon into his jacket lining, was now impossible. They watched her hands too closely. In the surveillance van parked in a narrow alley off Rue Commodore, Tamar chain-smoked Rothmans, headphones clamped to her ears. The microphone hidden in Nadia's apron tie relayed every word, every breath. "She's too exposed," the tech operator whispered. "Guards are alert. Something's off." Tamar's knuckles whitened around the abort transmitter. One press and Nadia would hear a coded phrase through her earpiece. "Your uncle called from Tyre," signaling immediate extraction. But aborting now meant Danawi walked free, the Paris embassy plot advanced, and Nadia's cover burned for nothing. Tamar hesitated, thinking of the girl's file, father's funeral photo, Nadia's small face streaked with dust and tears. She let the moment stretch. Back in the shop, Nadia tilted Danawi's head to reach the jawline, razor gliding smooth. Conversation was her only weapon now. "They say you're a big man in the resistance, Sayyid," she said softly, voice pitched with adolescent awe. "That you make the Zionists afraid." Danawi chuckled low, eyes half closed. Someone has to teach them respect, Habibi. They take our land, bomb our villages. We answer. His hand rested casually on the armrest, close enough that Nadia noticed the gold cufflink engraved with a Hezbollah emblem. A trophy from Tehran, perhaps. She filed it away. The bodyguard by the window shifted, hand drifting toward his jacket. Nadia caught the movement in the mirror and felt ice slide down her spine. Had they been warned? A routine change or suspicion? She kept her rhythm steady, scraping foam from Danawi's cheek. My father fought in '82, she lied smoothly. Died at Beaufort Castle. Said men like you would finish what he started. The words landed perfectly. Danawi's eyes softened, the predator recognizing shared blood. Beaufort was a hard day, he said quietly, but we made them bleed. He reached up and patted her wrist, almost paternal. You honor him, boy. The moment broke the bodyguard's tension. The one near the window relaxed, lighting a cigarette. Nadia exhaled inwardly. Trust bought, seconds earned. She finished the shave with practiced flourishes, wiping the blade clean. Now the critical beat, the aftershave. The vial was in her left hand, transferred during the final strokes. As she reached for the bottle on the shelf, plain glass, identical to the real one, Danawi sat up, stretching. Enough splash for tonight, he said. I have a meeting. He stood, adjusting his collar, the bodyguards closing in. Nadia's heart slammed against her ribs. Opportunity slipping. She improvised. Saeed, your cuff. There's a spot of foam. She stepped close, cloth in hand, dabbing at the gold link. In the motion, her other hand brushed his jacket pocket, depositing the tiny tracker, a flexible polymer strip no thicker than thread, into the seam. Contact made. The beacon activated on body heat, transmitting for 72 hours. Danawi thanked her with a generous tip, 2 crisp $100 bills tucked into her apron. Come south one day, Nabil. We always need brave boys. He left with his shadows, the bell tinkling behind them. Nadia stood frozen until the sound of their Mercedes faded into Hamra's night traffic. Only then did her knees buckle. Abu Hassan emerged, oblivious, praising her steady hands. She smiled weakly, excusing herself to the back room where she vomited quietly into a bucket. In the van, Tamar finally breathed. She did it. Trackers live. Signal strong. Cheers were muted. Relief, not victory. The beacon would lead them to Danawi's safe houses, arms caches, perhaps the Paris cell. But Nadia had to stay in place, keep cutting hair, keep smiling at monsters. That night, in a tiny attic room above the shop, Nadia peeled off the disguise. The boy's tunic fell away, revealing the girl beneath. Small breasts bound flat, bruises from training still yellow on her ribs. She sat on the narrow bed, staring at the $100 bills Danawi had given her. Blood money. She cried then, silently, face buried in her knees, 15 years old and already carrying ghosts heavier than any man. Across the Mediterranean in Tel Aviv, analysts watched the tracker's blinking dot move through Beirut's southern suburbs, Dahieh, Hezbollah's fortress. The path confirmed safe houses Mossad had only suspected. Plans formed, keyed on strike team insertion, possible airstrike coordinates. But every map point came at a cost measured in a child's stolen innocence. Nadia washed her face, reapplied the charcoal stubble, and lay down fully clothed. Sleep came in fragments, dreams of her father's shattered workshop in Ashdod, of Danawi's gentle pat on her wrist, of the razor poised at a throat she both hated and feared. Dawn would bring another day of sweeping hair from the floor, smiling at customers, waiting for the next bell to ring. The trap had caught its prey. Now it only needed to close. June 20th, 1986. 8 days had passed since the tracker slipped into Massoud Danawi's pocket, and Beirut's summer heat pressed down on the city like a fever. Nadia swept the barbershop floor for the 3rd time that morning, the rhythmic scrape of the broom the only sound breaking the silence. Abu Hassan had stepped out for coffee, leaving her alone with the mirrors and the ghosts. Every reflection showed the same boy, Nabil, staring back, but the eyes were hers, older now, ringed with the purple of sleepless nights. The tracker had worked better than anyone dared hope. From the moment Danawi left the shop on June 12th, the beacon painted a precise portrait of his hidden world. Nightly movements through Dahiyeh's labyrinth of narrow streets, long stops at a nondescript apartment block in Hamra Street, early morning visits to a warehouse near the airport road. Analysts in Tel Aviv cross-referenced the route with years of fragmented intelligence. The apartment was Hezbollah's operational planning hub. The warehouse stored Iranian Fajr 3 rockets smuggled through Damascus. Most crucially, on June 18th, the signal lingered for 4 hours at a villa in the southern suburb of Bir Hassan, coordinates matching a safe house where Mossad believed Danawi met directly with IRGC liaisons. In the Glilot Operations Center, Tamar stood over a wall-sized map dotted with glowing pins, each one a breadcrumb Nadia had bought with her nerve. Director Admoni joined her at 300 hours on June 19th, coffee in hand, face grim. "We have enough for a Kaidan team," he said. 2 shooters, local support. Clean hit car bomb on the airport road route. He travels it every Friday morning. No fingerprints. Tamar nodded, but her eyes stayed on the latest intercept. Danawi had scheduled a meeting tomorrow, June 20th, with a Palestinian cell leader from Damascus. The Paris embassy plot was accelerating, but the plan changed at dawn. A new signal burst from Nadia's concealed transmitter. 3 short clicks, the emergency code meaning imminent danger. She had spotted the same black BMW twice that morning, circling the block slowly. Driver wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky. Hezbollah counterintelligence. Someone had noticed the generous tip in American dollars, or a bodyguard remembered the apprentice's hands too soft for a village boy. The net was tightening. Tamar made the call without hesitation. Extraction tonight. The Kaidan strike would wait. The girl came first. Nadia received the message mid-afternoon, relayed through Abu Hassan's radio tuned to a Cypriot station playing Fairuz. Between songs, a prearranged phrase, "The nightingale returns to Tyre," told her everything. Relief flooded her, chased immediately by terror. Leaving meant walking out of the shop and never returning, through streets crawling with eyes that might already know. She waited until closing. Abu Hassan locked the front gate, grumbling about slow business, and retired to his apartment upstairs. Nadia lingered in the back room, changing out of the apprentice tunic one last time. Beneath it, she wore civilian clothes. A simple dress, hair let down and combed forward to soften her features. No more boy. Just a 15-year-old girl who looked even younger without the disguise. She tucked the vial of unused toxin into a sanitary pad disposal, evidence destroyed, then slipped out the rear door into the alley. The extraction route was burned into her memory. 3 blocks north to Rue Bliss, left into the American University campus where students provided cover, then to a prearranged pickup point near the Corniche. A Mossad boat would wait offshore, launched from an Israeli missile boat patrolling international waters. But Beirut never let anyone leave cleanly. Halfway across the university greenery, headlights swept the path behind her. The black BMW. It idled at the gate, 2 men stepping out, Danawi's bodyguards from the shop, faces she knew too well. One spoke urgently into a handheld radio. They hadn't seen her yet, but campus security was thin, and Hezbollah controlled the streets beyond. Nadia cut left into a cluster of dormitories, heart slamming against her ribs. She ducked into a shadowed stairwell, pressing against the wall as footsteps echoed nearby. A student passed, laughing with friends, oblivious. Nadia slipped into their wake, matching their pace, head down. The group spilled onto Rue Bliss. She peeled off toward the seafront, the salt air hitting her face like freedom almost tasted. The Corniche was busy with evening strollers, families eating manakish from carts, lovers leaning on the railing, watching waves crash against concrete. Nadia spotted the signal. A man in a red windbreaker reading a newspaper on a bench, left shoe untied. Mossad extraction spotter. She approached slowly, sitting 2 benches away, pretending to adjust her sandal. Red windbreaker folded the paper once. Clear. She rose, walking toward the steps descending to the lower promenade where a Zodiac would surface among fishing boats. Then voices behind her, sharp, commanding, Arabic with a southern accent. "Stop, you girl." She didn't turn. Footsteps quickened. Nadia broke into a run, weaving through startled pedestrians, leaping the low wall onto the rocks below. The sea roared close now, dark water churning. Gunshots cracked, warning shots into the air. Screams erupted along the corniche. Red Windbreaker was running too, drawing a suppressed pistol. He fired twice, silenced coughs, dropping the lead pursuer. The second bodyguard ducked behind a kiosk, returning fire. Chaos bloomed, people scattering, cars swerving. Nadia reached the water's edge, kicking off her shoes, diving into the cold Mediterranean without hesitation. Bullets zipped overhead, plunking into waves. Strong hands grabbed her moments later. Divers from the Zodiac, black neoprene, faces masked. They hauled her aboard as the inflatable's engine roared to life, speeding into the night. On the corniche, Red Windbreaker melted into the crowd before militia reinforcements arrived. The fallen bodyguard bled on the pavement, his partner screaming into a radio that the apprentice had been a girl, a Zionist spy. Aboard the missile boat INS Romach, steaming north under cover of darkness, Nadia lay wrapped in blankets on the deck, shivering from cold and shock. Tamar waited below in the tiny wardroom, face drawn with 8 days of chain-smoking worry. When Nadia descended the ladder, hair dripping seawater, Tamar pulled her into an embrace that felt almost maternal. "You're out," Tamar whispered. "It's over." Nadia's voice was small against her shoulder. "Did we get him?" Tamar pulled back, eyes steady. "Not yet. But because of you, we know exactly where he'll be tomorrow morning. The strike goes ahead at 700. Nadia nodded, exhaustion crashing over her like the waves they left behind. She thought of Danawi's hand patting her wrist, the almost kindness in his voice. She thought of her father's blood on Ashdod concrete. In the distance, Beirut's lights faded to a glow on the horizon. The trap had sprung. Tomorrow, it would snap shut. June 21st, 1986. Dawn broke over Beirut in a haze of pink and gold, the Mediterranean calm beyond the shattered skyline. In a nondescript repair garage on the airport road, a white Peugeot 405 sat parked among half-fixed taxis, its undercarriage freshly wired with 6 kilograms of C4 plastic explosive, shaped charge directed upward. A remote detonator, linked to a spotter 2 kilometers away, waited for the target convoy. Mossad's Kidon unit had worked through the night. 3 operatives inserted via the same sea route Nadia had used hours earlier, local Sayanim providing the vehicle and safe house. The plan was surgical. Massoud Danawi followed the same routine every Friday. Leave the Harat-Reich apartment at 0650, drive the airport road south toward a meeting at the training camps near Sidon, return by 0900. The Peugeot would be moved into his path at 0705, broken down with hood up, hazard lights blinking. As his Mercedes passed, the spotter would key the transmitter. No civilian traffic at that hour, minimal collateral. Danawi eliminated, Hezbollah's logistics chain severed for months. In Tel Aviv, the operations room beneath Glilo was silent, except for the hum of monitors. Director Admoni stood at the back, arms crossed, watching the live feed from a drone-launched micro-UAV circling high over Beirut. Tamar sat front row, fingers steepled, eyes fixed on the blinking tracker icon still active in Danawi's jacket. Nadia, freshly debriefed and sedated for shock, slept in a secure wing upstairs. Her part done, but her words echoing in every mind. He patted my wrist like I was his son. At 0652 Beirut time, the tracker began moving. Danawi's Mercedes emerged from the underground garage in Dahiyeh, flanked by 2 escort jeeps, a change from routine. Hezbollah security had heightened after the Corniche shooting. Word of the girl spy had spread like wildfire through their ranks. The convoy turned onto the airport road, speeding south. The Kidon spotter radioed calm confirmation. Package en route, 3 vehicles. ETA 4 minutes. The garage team pushed the Peugeot into the road, driver feigning distress, waving apologetically at sparse early traffic. They melted away on scooters moments later, At 07:03, the convoy appeared. Black Mercedes in the center, jeeps fore and aft, windows tinted dark. Danawi's silhouette visible in the back seat, head bent over papers. The spotter's thumb hovered over the trigger. Then the unexpected. A fourth vehicle joined from a side street. An armored Land Rover packed with Iranian advisors, flags flying. It slotted behind the Mercedes, part of the side-on meeting escort. Civilians now, school buses beginning morning runs, fruit vendors setting up carts. Tamar's voice cut through the room. Collateral risk too high, abort. Admoni didn't hesitate. Wave off, repeat, wave off. The spotter acknowledged, lowering the transmitter. The convoy roared past the Peugeot without slowing. Danawi lived another hour. Frustration rippled through Glilo, but the rules were iron. No operation that risked mass civilian deaths. Kaidan protocol demanded precision, not spectacle. Plan B formed within minutes. The tracker still broadcast strong. Danawi would return the same route by 0900. Traffic would be heavier then, but the primary risk, Iranians, would be gone. A secondary device, smaller, magnetic, could be attached en route by a scooter rider during a predictable slowdown at the Kaldi Junction traffic circle. The team adapted. At IWA 847, Danawi's convoy headed north again, lighter now, only the Mercedes and one Jeep. The Iranian Land Rover had peeled off toward the embassy. A Sayan on a Vespa, helmet visor down, weaved through traffic, closing on the Mercedes as it braked at Kaldi. In a blur of motion, he slapped the magnetic limpet mine to the rear wheel arch. 2 kilograms of Semtex, pressure triggered on high speed. He accelerated away before guards even registered the pass. The convoy cleared the junction, picking up speed toward Dahieh. At 0854, north of the airport, the mine detonated. The Mercedes lifted, flipped, came down in flames. Secondary explosions from fuel and possible munitions in the trunk tore the vehicle apart. The escort jeep swerved, crashed into a ditch. Black smoke billowed into the morning sky. Drone footage confirmed, no survivors from the Mercedes. Bodyguards in the jeep wounded, but Danawi's body, charred, unmistakable from height and build, was gone. Hezbollah radio channels erupted in fury. Sirens wailed across South Beirut. Crowds gathered, firing rifles into the air, vowing revenge. Glilo, the room exhaled as one. Admoni allowed a single nod. Tamar closed her eyes, whispering thanks to whatever force had kept the girl alive long enough to make this possible. By noon, Syrian state media blamed Zionist aggression. Iran condemned the cowardly assassination. But no proof surfaced, no fingerprints, no claimed responsibility. Israel remained silent. Nadia woke that afternoon in a quiet room overlooking the Tel Aviv shoreline. Tamar sat beside her bed, holding a cup of sweet tea. "It's done," Tamar said simply. Nadia stared at the ceiling, tears slipping silently into her hair. She saw Danawi's face in the mirror again, relaxed under the razor, trusting. She saw her father's workshop in flames, 2 ghosts now, balanced on the same scale. "Will they come for me?" she asked, voice small. "Never," Tamar replied. "You're home. New name, new life. No one will ever know what you did." But Nadia knew. And in the years that followed, as she grew into womanhood, university in Jerusalem, marriage to a quiet engineer from Haifa, children who never heard Arabic in the house, the memory stayed locked behind her eyes. Some nights she woke smelling bay rum and smoke, feeling the razor's weight in her hand. Massoud Danawi's death fractured Hezbollah's arms pipeline for 18 crucial months. The Paris embassy plot collapsed without his coordination. Northern Israel knew a rare stretch of quiet, all because a 15-year-old girl, disguised as a barber's boy, had touched evil close enough to mark it for destruction. The human cost was written in silence, in a woman who flinched at the sound of clippers, who taught her daughters never to trust kindness from strangers, who carried a nation's gratitude like an invisible scar. In the end, the trap closed perfectly, but some traps catch more than their prey. Spring 2018, a quiet suburb outside Haifa, the kind of place where jacaranda trees bloom purple in April, and the sea breeze carries the scent of pine down from the Carmel Hills. Nadia, or Miriam Cohen as the world now knew her, stood in her kitchen slicing tomatoes for salad, the radio playing soft classical music in the background. At 47, her hands were no longer the trembling ones of a 15-year-old apprentice barber. They were steady, practiced the hands of a mother who had raised 3 children and taught literature at a local high school for 20 years. Her hair, once cropped short and darkened with charcoal, now fell in soft waves streaked with silver. Only her eyes carried the old war, dark, watchful, quick to scan a room. Her youngest daughter, Maya, was home from army service for the weekend, laughing with friends in the garden. The sound drifted through the open window, bright and careless, the kind of laughter Nadia had never truly known at that age. Miriam paused, knife hovering over the cutting board, and felt the familiar ache settle in her chest. Not regret exactly. Gratitude, mixed with something sharper. The television in the living room flickered with evening news. A reporter stood in southern Lebanon, describing the latest Israeli airstrike on a Hezbollah convoy near the Syrian border. Precision munitions destroying a shipment of Iranian guidance kits before they could reach the Litani River. The anchor mentioned ongoing degradation of Hezbollah capabilities, a phrase that had become routine over decades. Miriam knew the deeper truth. Danawi's elimination in 1986 had created a fracture that never fully healed. Successors rose, but none matched his logistical genius. The Paris embassy bombing never happened. Northern communities slept quieter for years. The chain was broken at its strongest link, by a girl with a razor and a vial she never used. She had never told anyone. Not her husband, Avi, a gentle man who fixed medical equipment and believed her childhood scars came from a car accident. Not her children. Not even Tamar, who had retired to a kibbutz in the north and visited once a year with bottles of Iraq and old stories that danced carefully around the edges. The file remained sealed, classified forever in Mossad's vaults. Nadia became Miriam. The barber's apprentice vanished into myth. But some nights the past returned uninvited. In dreams, she still smelled bay rum and smoke, felt the weight of Danawi's trust under her fingers. She would wake gasping, reaching for the bedside lamp, reassuring herself that the explosion on the airport road had been real, that the man who ordered her father's death had burned in his Mercedes. Justice or vengeance. She no longer distinguished between them. In 2006, during the Second Lebanon War, when Katyushas fell on Haifa and her own children huddled in the shelter, Miriam volunteered at the hospital bandaging wounds with the same steady hands that once held a razor to a terrorist's throat. She watched the news footage of Hezbollah rockets launching from villages south of the Litani and felt no hatred, only a cold satisfaction that the stockpiles were smaller, the accuracy poorer, the command structure fractured because of what she had done at 15. Years later, in 2012, Tamar's funeral brought the only moment of near revelation. A handful of old operatives gathered at the small cemetery overlooking the sea. One of them, a gray-haired Qaidon veteran who had planted the limpet mine, approached Miriam with tears in his eyes. "You should know," he whispered. "We never forgot the girl who made it possible. The director himself said your work saved more lives than any single operation in the 80s. Miriam smiled politely, thanked him for his service, and walked away before her composure cracked. Now, in 2018, an envelope arrived. No return address, postmarked Cyprus. Inside, a single photograph, grainy but unmistakable. The old barber shop in Hamra, shuttered and bombed out during the Civil War, vines creeping over the faded sign, Abu Hassan and Son. On the back, in Tamar's careful handwriting, "The shop is gone, the debt is paid, live Habibti." Miriam burned the photo in the sink that night, watching the flames curl the edges, inhaling the brief, acrid smoke. She felt something loosen inside her chest, a knot tied in Beirut alleys 32 years earlier. In the autumn of 2024, her first grandchild was born, a boy with dark eyes like hers. She held him in the hospital, tracing his tiny fingers, marveling at how fragile new life felt. When he gripped her thumb with surprising strength, she whispered the only promise she could make. "You will never have to do what I did." On quiet Fridays, Miriam still walked the Haifa shore alone, watching missile boats patrol the horizon. She no longer flinched at the sound of clippers in a salon. The dreams came less often. The girl who disguised herself as a barber's boy had grown into a woman who had built a life from the ashes of vengeance. She taught her students poetry, Darwish, Amichai, Rumi, showing them how words could bridge what bombs never could. She kissed her grandchildren goodnight without scanning the shadows first. Massoud Danawi's name faded from headlines, another ghost in Lebanon's long war. Hezbollah endured, adapted, grew new heads. But the fracture Nadia created in 1986 echoed through decades, delays, shortages, missed opportunities that saved towns, schools, families. In the end, the human cost settled into silence. A mother who never told her children why she cried at certain songs. A wife who held her husband tighter on anniversaries she never explained. A woman who carried a nation's unspoken gratitude like a secret medal pinned inside her heart. One spring evening in 2026, Miriam Cohen stood on her balcony as the sun dipped into the Mediterranean, painting the sky the color of old blood turned gold. Her granddaughter played in the garden below, chasing bubbles that caught the light before vanishing. Miriam smiled, a real one, unshadowed. The trap she set as a child had closed long ago. And somehow, against every odd, she had walked out of it whole.